Sorry, Earthlings, but all your base are belong to us.
Knock it off, Mike.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise is no stranger to video game adaptations. Since the mid-80s, everyone's favorite heroes in a half-shell have received video game installments, usually based on the current cartoon or movie. Their newest title, known as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutants in Manhattan, seems to be one of the few exceptions to that. Platinum Games, Japanese game company known for titles such as Bayonetta and Mad World, decided to approach the game and setting as a standalone title. They derived from the comic books more than anything else, as seen with particular character designs. In this episode of Your Opinion is Wrong, we will be reviewing this title. Regarding the gameplay, it seems that Platinum Games did not want to offer another brainless beat-em-up that required only the slightest sliver of strategy in order to complete it. Like, you know, nearly every single title before this. Don't get me wrong, I grew up playing the arcade titles, including the superior version of Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo, and have everlasting memories of cooperative fun. A lot of those titles are absolutely fine, for arcades. We've already seen what happens when the development team tries to take the arcade games people love and do nothing more but extend the campaign for a home console release. We receive a competent title, but one that ultimately feels very shallow and grows tiresome very quickly. Platinum Games used to primarily make original titles, but in recent history have heavily focused on existing IPs and licensed products, as we have already seen with Legend of Korra, Transformers Devastation, and Star Fox Zero. While these may be seen as shallow cash grabs, the least there is to appreciate is the turns they take for these franchises. Their Transformers title wasn't some run-of-the-mill third-person action game like other titles in the Transformers catalog, but instead a hack-and-slash combo-heavy entry that is faster paced than everything before it. Much like Star Fox Zero, which was not just another return of the lauded Star Fox 64 format like people probably expected. This distinction also defines why Mutants in Manhattan is not just another shallow arcade beat-em-up like people most likely expected. But then again, they already remade Turtles in Time in 2009 and we know how that turned out. With that, we dive into the gameplay. This game does not really play similar to previous titles in this franchise, rather it feels closer to Anarchy Reigns, a multiplayer-focused brawler by Platinum Games that launched a few years back. It takes mechanics that were never seen or focused on games before it, such as an inventory system, an item shop, experience points, aiming projectiles, special moves with cooldown, critical dodging or blocking, character enhancements you can equip and upgrade, recovering teammates when they're downed or stunned, completing various types of missions, and combined team attacks. One particular mechanic I really appreciated is the ability to extend your life bar throughout the stage. Whenever you gain battle points, which is through various means, you also gain towards another slice of health. Earning a new slice also replenishes your life bar to full capacity. This essentially encouraged you to play more aggressively and involve yourself in the fights as much as possible. Each turtle plays differently and have various combos to perform against the baddies, as well as dodge, block, and perform specials alone or with another turtle. Dodging and blocking also has a meter. Overuse of it, like with Platinum's previous titles, can be a very bad move because it leaves you completely open for enemies to attack. There is never a moment without all 4 turtles, even in single player. You can also switch between your fellow turtles at any time, helpful when you're low on health or downed. There's a total of 9 stages. 7 of them offer an array of missions which are different each time you play. They all vary from defeating enemy hordes, defending areas, disarming bombs, or transporting goods. Traveling throughout the stage is made convenient through the likes of grinding on rails and gliding with a small tarp. Once you and your team complete a number of missions, the boss's location is revealed. The boss fights, in my opinion, are the highlight of the game. When it came to older arcade titles, they ranged from pathetically easy to pretty much unfair, unless you knew particular exploits. Clearly, they made sure the boss fights for this title last a while and provide a hefty challenge. In fact, this portion of the game really feels like it was inspired by Monster Hunter, a game franchise notorious for its unrelenting bosses. After all, it is difficult to interrupt their attacks, they usually don't receive impact upon getting hurt. The concept of critical dodge, granting you a chance to ride on top of the boss and disrupting them for a period of time, is something similar to a mechanic introduced in Monster Hunter 4. The bosses can hit like trains, and of course random encounters of an extra boss during your main boss fight. Yeah, they really went all out for these fights, and it was a very delightful surprise, albeit the anxiety that came with it. Online multiplayer is not too much different, besides the idea that players will most likely separate to cover more ground or find collectibles. Also during multiplayer you cannot switch between turtles even if you're not in a full 4-player party. So when you get downed and nobody recovers you, you get sent back to base to restore your health through this delicious pile of cheesy goodness. This is basically your respawn time. You can tap the button to regain health faster, but eating too quickly will cause you to burn yourself, causing your respawn to delay even further. If your entire team ends up at base at the same time, it's a game over and you have to restart the scenario. That is, if you have any continues left. The story itself is very by the books and nothing special. Evil forces led by Shredder and Krang are out to take over the world, and it's up to Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael to stop them. We would see the appearances of all expected villains, but I would have liked to see Platinum dive into the rest of the rogue gallery we do not see often enough, such as Rat King and Baxter Stockman. The Turtles' personality also shine as much as one would expect, full of humor that's so bad it's great. The music is also fitting to the chaos that ensues on the screen. The boss themes are especially entertaining tunes. Some complaints I have is that the timing windows for critical dodges can be very stingy. The fact that the game is locked at 30 frames per second definitely doesn't help that either. Also, there's plenty of enemy attacks in which a critical dodge isn't possible to begin with, so you end up hurting yourself and getting yourself into even more danger. It's not a major complaint since it ultimately becomes part of the learning curve. Some stages are just slight alterations of previous stages. They do not exactly feel like the same stage with a different coat of paint, but I wish they provided a bit more variety. Particular enemies, especially the rock soldiers, take way too long to defeat at times. The voice clips can also become very redundant, especially in the midst of a boss fight since you and your friends get down quite often. It would be more bearable if they each had more than a few different lines and responses. And my biggest complaint has to be the lack of local co-op. I understand the gameplay style would make it impossible for everyone to share the same screen like in the original arcade titles, but I was hoping for at least 2 players split screen. Unfortunately, this is not an option. Another issue is no extra characters. While the 4 turtles play differently from each other, it would have been nice for a few extra characters to play as after you complete the game. Casey Jones would obviously have been a great extra character. Even Transformers Devastation had a bigger roster. Unlike others, I do not have a problem with the length of the main campaign, especially considering that it gives you a lot to grind for as well as 4 different types of characters to play as. There's also the idea of replaying a stage isn't always the exact same array of missions, adding more variety. It's certainly not the longest game ever made, but this title provides you more to do and more to earn than any Ninja Turtles game before it. All in all, this pleased me as a fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. It's nice to see a company try something different for our pizza binging turtles and provide gameplay that is unique to everything before it. Rather than wailing on a single attack button to take down your enemies, you need to strategize and understand the obstacles ahead that you are about to confront. And of course, work together in order to take down baddies more efficiently. Don't get me wrong, the gameplay itself can still be very stiff at times and somewhat redundant. Despite that, I still managed to have fun with this game from beginning to end. After the pitiful remake of Turtles in Time, this is a step in the right direction for 4-player cooperative mayhem because I personally grew out of the old formula. Thanks for watching.